We are live.
All right, very good. Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the special called meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Education. The agenda is before you. I would like to mention one thing about the agenda on the second page, item 6. At the time we had to complete the agenda, we thought we might have a need for a closed session. We will not have a need for a closed session this evening, so just making everybody aware of that before we get started. Superintendent and staff reports. You've had the opportunity to look through those. Any questions or discussions about any of those? Okay. Item 3, we have some presentations. Data presentation, Tracy Griffin.
She's on here. I see her.
Yeah.
I am here.
Okay. There you go. We hear you now.
Am I going to share my screen or are you going to share yours, Mr. Rowe?
You'd have to share yours. I don't have that up on mine.
Okay. I had difficulty getting my computer wouldn't share the other day in Teams when we did the instructional coaches meeting.
I think the board members may have a hard copy in front of them.
I did give them a hard copy.
Okay.
But I was hoping that, for YouTube and people online, they would be able to see it. But it's just whenever I click share my content, it just is spinning.
Let me see if I can do it on my end. Just give me 1 second here. How to pull it up. No, it's not letting me either.
It worked perfectly yesterday in the counselors meeting, but I scheduled that meeting myself, so I don't know.
Let me try one more time here. No, it is not allowing me to do either.
Yeah, I've had difficulty with it. If I'm not the organizer, doesn't work very well. So we'll just go off your hard copies then. I sent an email to all the principals as well with a copy of the presentation a few minutes ago. So everybody should have it pretty much that's on.
Yes.
The first page is percentage of students tested. And I put this on here so that you would be able to tell that we, of course, could not test 100% of our kids because they weren't in the building. And I thought it would be good information for you to see.
There it is.
Can you see it now? Is that you, Mr. Rowe?
I don't have control over it, though. That's even worse. Is it showing up on your all's end?
Yeah, I've got it.
It's just spinning on my end. Go ahead and go on, and I'll work on it.
Okay. So the lowest percentage tested was at the high school, and that was 66% of our kids, and Highland tested 92, Houstonville 95. So considering that we only have about 60%, 50 to 60% of our kids coming, we managed to test a majority of our kids in our fall benchmark. But I wanted you to be aware of these numbers because it really skews the data. So in the presentation of the graphs, I didn't even really touch on 1920 data because there's no comparison when we didn't test all of our kids. But you do have that data in the very back of your presentation. I gave you the raw numbers so that if you wanted to look at that later, you could do that. The next slide is an overview by grade level of Irate reading K through 5. So you can see it's very surprising to me. Like it shows that 54% of our kids in kindergarten are on grade level in the fall. So some of the data is very confusing because you're thinking, how is that possible? They've never been in school. But then you're also, we don't know who's coming to school. Maybe it was the kids that were most prepared and the ones that didn't go to preschool, or the ones who haven't had a lot of instruction or are still at home right now. So without further data and getting all of our kids in the big building, it's hard to really distinctly tell what these numbers are going to mean for us. But if you look across the data, it looks pretty good for the most part for the beginning of the year, because this isn't, I'm not showing you where they should be right now. I'm showing you where they need to be at the end of the year. So if you look at third grade, we've got some kids, already 64% of our kids scoring on or below grade level in the fall. So some of the data looks very good for the fall. But like I said, you take it with a grain of salt, knowing that not everybody was tested, but it's very promising looking to me. And the math data is, of course, lower. We know that in Lincoln County, we've had trouble with our math for a while, and we're working on it. But if you look at kindergarten, again, they look like a lot of them came in just well above where they need to be and prepared. First grade is a little concerning to me because we know they missed a lot of their kindergarten year and they missed the beginning of their first grade year. So they are really far behind. But the data still isn't really far off from where it was fall of last school year for math. So the next slides, I broke it down by grade level reading and math just in a pie chart so you could see it more clearly than that bar graph. We don't have to touch on every one of them. I just wanted you to be able to see it better. And besides that, if you have any questions, we can talk about that. That goes through 5th grade. If we can skip on over to the middle school, if anyone has any questions about elementary, Mr. Rowe. So for the middle school, they did map again. So they have 2 years worth of data, and that is in your raw data in the back as well. But as you can see, their data looks very promising as well. And they tested 84% of their kids. They really worked hard on testing a majority of their kids, so their data is pretty close probably. So in what we're looking at for 6th grade, in reading, we're almost 60% of the kids already testing above where they should be for their RIT score in math. For 7th grade, it's over 60%. The 8th grade is the lowest with a little over 50, so I thought the scores were very promising as well, considering how many kids they did test. Their data looks really, really good. And the high school, this is the first time they've ever given MAP, so we can't compare it to anything, and they tested about 66% of their kids. But what is interesting, and you'll see that in your raw data, is the high school scored above the national norm RIT score in about every area. So the kids that tested very well at the high school. So that is very, very promising. Any questions?
Looks good considering.
It does look good considering, and when you look at it, you get really hopeful and think, wow, it looks great. But then we also know that come March or April, we may have all of our kids back in the building and it'd be a completely different set of data. But it's some very promising, exciting data right now.
Anybody else question or discussion? All right. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Next up, presentation plans for virtual learning and targeted interventions. We'll start off with Claudia Godby.
I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. I've just been asked to share some of the data with the board about our targeted assistance program that we implemented shortly before the Thanksgiving break, but really got rolling after that Thanksgiving break. And we are bringing in small groups of students to buildings in the mornings and in the afternoons, running 2 shifts so that we can maximize the number of students we touch maximize the number of folks that we can bring in for this program by running 2 separate groups. So I'm just going to give you some numbers and some percentages, and then I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you might have. And also, I think the principals are on here as well and are going to speak after myself. So if I can't answer a question, perhaps they can, pertaining to their individual school. So I'm going to start with Lincoln County High School. Their total enrollment as of yesterday afternoon was 1,032 students, and they are serving 107 students. Those are students who are both exceptional students and also students who have some failures at all grade levels, 9 through 12. When we worked on our process, we decided that we would start with 12th graders, 11th graders, 10th graders, 9th graders as far as addressing our failures, and then a variety across the board of exceptional students who needed individual, what I call eyeball to eyeball assistance, just someone working with them. At Lincoln County Middle School, as of yesterday afternoon, their total enrollment was 792 students, and they are working, they have 26 students coming in for targeted assistance. Of those students coming in, the majority of them are students with exceptional learning needs. Actually, 22 of those that are coming in, and then some students who work within our migrant program. May I back up for just a second? For those of you, so that you do not have to do math in your head, back at the high school, that's about 10.3% of their population. When we look at the middle school, that is about 3% of their population. Let's move on to Stanford Elementary. And please stop me if I'm moving too fast. As of yesterday afternoon at Stanford Elementary, their total enrollment was 487 students. We are serving 58 students at Stanford Elementary, with the majority of those being students who have exceptionalities. Actually, 51 of those are students who have exceptionalities, and the rest are students who do not. That's about 11.9% of their population. I'm going to keep on rolling because I'm assuming if I'm going too fast, you'll slow me down. Let's move down to Waynesburg Elementary, who's running a 4-day-a-week program. So I think that's something that you should know as well. They're running a 4-day-a-week program. They're serving students 4 days a week. Their total enrollment as of yesterday, 201. Students they're serving, 53, for 26% of their population. Houstonville Elementary, as of yesterday afternoon, total enrollment 356, serving 88 students. That's 24% of their population.
Claudia, I'm going to stop you just for clarification.
Sure.
These number of students they're serving, you mean these are the kids that are actually coming to the school, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Crab Orchard Elementary, As of yesterday afternoon, 220 total enrollment, serving 35 students in some form of face-to-face service. It's about 16% of their school population. And last but not least, we have Highland Elementary, total enrollment 190, serving 49 students. And that's almost 27% of their student population. I think it's important to note that without your support from the board and the support of Mr. Rowe, we would not have a successful targeted assistance program. I appreciate that so much, and there are so many of our staff members who have very much been embraced and are in huge support of our targeted assistance program. I think we've saved a number of students from having failing grades or missing content by simply being able to bring them in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 1 day a week, and working with them. Also, one last plug, our transportation department has been phenomenal. They have turned on a dime to help us out because we've added students continuously. And I just want to publicly thank Mr. Carrier and our bus drivers and our transportation staff for really making it work for us. We simply put the structure, rough structure in place and said, principals, tell us how you want to run this, who you want to come, and we will do all the support that we can to make that happen. So that's just a little bit about our targeted assistance program. I will be glad to answer any questions that you have about that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Was the criteria for student involvement something that was handed down from the Student Support Center? Was it something that individual schools determined for themselves? And if individual schools determined it for themselves, did the elementaries work together to create criteria, or did each one of them have something separate?
I'm going to start with the last part of your question and work backwards. The elementary folks, I'm not sure how much discussion they had amongst themselves as to what criteria they wanted to set. So I don't feel like I'm the best one to answer that question. As far as what criteria we set at the Student Support Center, with the exception of the exceptional students that we targeted and said these students are going to come in because of their exceptionalities, we did not put any parameters on any of the schools to say this is who should come and this is who should not come. We simply said to them, you tell us who you want and we'll help you make it happen. That's the only criteria that we placed on the schools, is just tell us who you want and we'll make it happen, with the exception of our students that have exceptionalities.
Okay.
And those were chosen by a team of exceptional teachers who worked together and said these students really need human contact, face-to-face contact.
Okay.
And did I get all parts of your question, Mr. Smith, or was there one part that I missed?
No, you did. I mean, my basic question was how much was determined by individual schools as far as criteria to involve students, and did the Student Support Center provide guidance or guidelines? And you answered that question. So thank you.
No.
I do have one question. As far as the students that were not being very successful with the online learning platform that we had in these, what's the success rate? Have these kids grown since they've been able to come into these small groups and get some help?
Can I tell you that in about 3 days, when grades are due and when we've been able to determine some growth that way, I don't know that I would be a good judge of that right now. Mr. Lane, I'm not trying to put your question off, but I don't know that right now I know the answer to that. Can I tell you that we brought a large group of students in who needed human contact, who we fed, and who got the support from a teacher or from a person that they weren't getting at home? I can definitely tell you that made a difference. But to put a quantitative number on that right now, sir, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I think at the end of the grading term, when we're able, especially with our high school students, to be able to say, hey, we targeted you because you had 2 Fs and we brought you in and now we brought those up to 2 Cs, I'll have a better answer for you.
Great. Thank you. And thank you ones that put this together.
Alan?
Yeah, you have a percentage based on the total school populations to who you had come in. What about the percentage of the exceptional students to the ones that was actually brought in? Do you have that ratio? Say if there was 25 of them brought in, how many of them was? You told on 1 or 2 of them, but you didn't tell on every one of them, I think.
I didn't tell you that on every one of them, Mr. Hubble. If you want me to figure that out, I will. I primarily did those 2 schools because a large percentage of the students that they brought in were exceptional students. In the other schools, I did not break it down that way because it was just kind of a mixture of students coming in. But I can certainly probably break it down for you by the end of the meeting if that's something you'd want me to do.
I was just curious. It's no problem.
Okay.
Anyone else, question or discussion? Okay, thank you, Ms. Gobby. The second part of this is, of course, the principals talking about virtual learning and targeted intervention. So I don't know if they have any order picked out yet already, or?
Actually, I'm glad you asked. There's a couple of them that actually got some plans tonight with their kids, maybe doing some parades for some of their students in their building. So I promised 3 of them they could go the top 3 to go.
Okay.
So I would start with Mr. Carrier if he's ready.
All right, Mr. Carrier.
I am ready. I'm getting my camera on here. Thank you. First of all, appreciate the opportunity. Would like to say we do welcome our board members to come tour our school, be with us and see some of the things that we do have going on during our virtual learning, just to see some of our teachers in action. At Stanford, our word of the year is intentional. A quote that I shared with our staff at the beginning of the year is, if you want to experience significant progress towards your goal, you need to be intentional about the work you are doing every day. I also talked about the difference between having good intentions and being intentional. We started the year trying to be intentional and making sure that while our students were at home, we were working to meet their needs. And so the Student Support Center did provide some guiding questions as we talked through this tonight, so I'll just answer those questions. What did we add to our virtual plan to enhance the educational experience? So from the very beginning, with the virtual plan, I did ask my teachers to push out extra resources to our students. Those could be videos, games, links to websites, information to support the Edgenuity learning that they were doing. Many teachers did recorded lessons, even though it had not been something that I required at that point. And we quickly found out that if the students would use the extra resources that my teachers were supplying them with, it made a positive impact on how they did on the Edgenuity assignments and quizzes. The Edgenuity product is rigorous and on grade level and above grade level in some cases. And so we found out that if the students used our extra resources that our teachers were spending time finding and supplying them. It made an impact on their grades. We could see differences in kids that were using those resources and kids that were not using those resources. What did we require from our teachers and students? After further direction from the Student Support Center, we did add a requirement of teachers teaching and sharing that virtually with live sessions where students could seek help. Our staff took what we learned from last spring about remote virtual instruction and worked around that to try to get students the information that they need and also provide a time of live virtual connection and assistance if needed. So we would record a lesson, our teachers would record a lesson, and then they had check-in sessions throughout the week so that if students had a particular question about that lesson or a skill, then they could connect with that teacher. One celebration point from our plan is that our teachers and students enjoy the time of connection and being able to see each other. When we started those connection sessions, I had multiple teachers come to me and say, hey, I'm just so happy to see my kids face to face because we've been doing a lot of talking over the phone. That is a celebration point for us. And one area of improvement for our plan is working to increase the percent of students that participate in the live sessions and then use those resources that we are providing. So our teachers are working hard to provide some assistance and so we want more kids to participate in that and use those resources. As far as the targeted small group in-person instruction, the guiding talking question is what groups benefited from the in-person instruction, and mostly that is our exceptional child students. We did have a few, we do have a reading interventionist that did bring a few of our tier 3 students that she serves, and they were invited for in-person services as well. Most of these students are transported by their parents, and Claudia had a number of 58, and we worked on this number. My number yesterday was 64, not a big difference. I think some of that is therapy. And again, most of those would be special ed kids. Our exceptional need children would be those kids that we have brought into our building. In addition to that targeted small group of in-person students, I asked all of my homeroom teachers to select 2 to 5 students that needed additional support, and they were invited to participate in virtual targeted small groups instruction. So even though the numbers that you're seeing in front of you tonight do not reflect this number because these students didn't come into the building, they met in a group of 2 or 3 or 4 with the teacher. The teacher taught skills that they needed help with. We served additional 76 students through that method. And some of those kids received multiple services. They would meet with 2 or 3 teachers during the course of the week to get that extra support. One celebration point for us of our targeted instruction is that our model focused on consistency. When this plan was rolled out at a principals meeting, when we left the principals meeting, we were under the impression that if we were in red, we would not be able to bring students in. We did get a message from Mr. Rowe later, probably the next week, maybe even that weekend, that said that had changed. He had got permission, found out that if we are in the red zone, that we could bring kids in. We had made our plan at Stanford. I had met with my team. We have about 40 staff kids in the building, in addition to the kids that we were bringing in for targeted services. So we stuck with our plan. We felt like we could provide that small group instruction in addition to the exceptional children getting the services. We were able to provide services to 76 other students that way. So that is a celebration point. And then an area for improvement is we have students who do not have internet access that we need to reach out to see if we can get involved in the in-person targeted instruction. And we do have a few spots that we could, because of building capacity at 15%, we could reach out to some of our other RTI kids and bring those in as well. So that is an area for improvement for us if we were to continue the virtual path in the next semester. You have any questions for me?
I do. What was the reason or the decision behind doing the small groups virtually instead of in person? Was that because of the need, because the parents didn't want to bring their kids, or the teachers didn't want to teach in person?
No, sir, not because teachers did not want to teach in person. So as I explained, when we first got the information at the Student Support Center, the information was relayed as if we were in red, we would not be able to bring kids in person. So when we look at our capacity, when I met with my team, my administrative team here at Stanford, when we look at our capacity, we can bring about 120 kids in the building. At 15%, somewhere around there. So we have the 58 kids from the 51 kids from EC, the 7 or 8 more kids for the Tier 3 reading, and then our 40 staff children that are in the building every day. Now, we do not have 50 kids in the building every day. I looked at numbers this week as I was working on this. We have about 30 kids in the building that come for the targeted services. And then we have, if all of our staff is here and their children are here, 40 of those kids. So that is part of the reason. And then the next, and I'm just going to be completely honest, I was sick, had to work from home for a little while. And when we got the message that we could resume, that in-person instruction could be done in red for targeted services, I was at home. We had a plan, and we stuck with that plan. We had some kids that we offered to come that did not come in person. They wanted to do virtual, and that is the reason.
Okay. What about the kids that don't have the internet? Were they reached out to try to get them in person, or I mean, how are we measuring the success for those kids?
So we do have, and that I spoke about that as one of our improvement areas. Yeah. We do know that we have some kids that do not have internet. Our teachers, we have some teachers that are on phone calls, have been doing calls with those kids. And when we look at these kids, we have a Google form that my teachers submit every week, or if they need to, if they're having trouble reaching a family or communicating with a student. And then we do, and when we were doing home visits, my counselors and attendance clerk were doing home visits. We were doing phone calls, trying to reach out to those people to get them involved.
Mm-hmm. Yep, great. Yep. I know it's tough times. Y'all doing the best you can. I worry about those kids too, you know.
Yes. Yep. But as we talked on Monday morning with my admin team, that is one of the teams. That is one of the things that we said, if we do not get to resume full in-person learning in January, that is something that we've got to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Questions, comments for Mr. Carrier? Yes, Ms. Meek.
Mr. Carrier, the recorded lessons you talked about, did all teachers do that, or just some teachers? Because I think that is just a great tool for clarification or review.
Yes, all of my teachers pushed out recorded lessons. They would record lessons after the last principal meeting and board meeting. When they ask us to add to our virtual plan is when we started. Some were doing that already, and after the last board meeting and principal meeting, that's when I asked everybody to take on that. They push it out in different manners, some through Class Dojo, because parents can access that on their phone. Some have Google Classrooms where they push that out, but that is, and the one thing about that is kids cannot take over the session because it's recorded. Lots of times in the live session, kids want to talk with each other, and that's the great piece. So that's the reason we scheduled the live sessions as well, so that kids could have that connection with each other.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hubble?
Yeah, I just got a quick question. I don't want to sound smart or anything, but you said you had 40 students that were teachers or employee children, correct?
Yes.
Are they in part of the category of what we call, the targeted area that needs to be coming? Or if those spots were freed up, is there other students that would be better served to take those places?
We do have some students that get served in that number of those, but most of them are here because their parents need them to be able to be here so that they can continue to work.
Well, I understand that, and like I said, I don't want to sound smart, but there's a lot of other people that's having to find childcare for their students that aren't able to take them to work with them, and I didn't know if we had other students in the county that might be better help if they were at school. Just a question. No, I ain't trying to be smart or anything.
No, I didn't take it like that. No.
So James, Ms. Gobby, she referenced 58 students.
Yes.
And then you said something about 76 more. And then is that in addition to the 40 staff children?
So 58 that Ms. Gobby are the ones that are coming in person.
Right.
Our 76 are the ones that are meeting with a teacher in a small group, either individually or 2, 3, or 4 students. So they are actually meeting through technology.
Yeah.
In addition to their regular sessions that they have with their teacher.
Okay. Anyone else, Mr. Carrier? Mr. Rowe, Ms. Gobby, do you have a question?
I forgot to mention preschool in my reporting of children coming in for targeted services, and I want to be sure that we give our preschool kudos for bringing in over 100 students over the course of this time. They were doing something just a little bit different. Parents were dropping off their students. They were having some time with their teacher and gathering some baseline data and skill development data on the students at preschool. But I didn't want to leave them out, and I'm so apologetic to the preschool staff that when I was talking, I forgot them. So please forgive me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Godby. Mr. Rowe, I'll let you call the next principal. Mike.
Miss Montgomery.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you see me and hear me? Okay.
Yes.
We have a whole bunch of Christmas lights right outside my window here. So if I go off, we've been able to be seen from outer space. The first thing I will talk about is our virtual learning plan. And our virtual learning plan, of course, Edgenuity is the main platform, but Irate is also utilized so students can have instruction geared to their learning path. The learning path is geared to a student's performance on the Irate diagnostic, and the Irate has very rigorous lessons that address the current standards that we teach. So if a child takes that test, then those lessons are geared at their level. And what that is it's a really good piece for response to intervention. And response to intervention is really basically just good teaching, and that a program adjusts itself up and down based on where the student scores. Most importantly, all of our teaching staff, they contact their parents and students weekly through the following modes. We use many different things. We use Google Meets, phone calls, text, Remind, Class Dojo, and email. Parents have reported their preferred mode of communication to the teacher at the beginning of the year, and we record all parent contacts in the IC parent contact log. Many of our parents work, and so they'll say, I would rather you text me, and then when I get a break during my job, I can answer you. So one thing, what we require from teachers and students, our teachers contact the students weekly. They set up virtual meetings each day, and they teach live lessons each day. Some of them have classrooms, and they send the links out to the public, and they log on, and they're on for an hour with their kids. They review essential skills. One thing, I'm very old school person and principal. We do a lot of reviewing things that are basic foundational skills, like math facts. We are reviewing sight words. We are reviewing phonics skills to just get those kids, because if they don't have that basic number fluency, they can't go on and do higher level math. Highland teachers and staff have done an outstanding job reaching out about academic needs, but they also have reached out about physical and social and emotional needs. I have a fantastic school counselor and FRC person who have checked on kids' welfare. They've taken meals to students. This whole year, our whole premise has been founded on making successful relationships with our parents. Teachers are very diligent in assisting everybody who needs help. It is expected from our students that they participate in the online learning assigned, both in Edgenuity and Irate, Google Meets, and take advantage of the tutoring offered by our teaching staff. And also through our 21st Century program, we have some additional support. Our virtual learning plan, one of our celebration points, was developed by our PLC meetings. So we had input from all our teaching staff and every person in the building. Each teacher team provided new insight and perspective, and they strengthened our entire plan. One area of improving our plan, as far as improving our plan, I think that it needs to be reviewed often and adjusted because the current pandemic situation is rapidly evolving. We'll continue to do that in our PLC structure so that our teachers' voices can be heard when we are developing and revising our strategies for our community. As far as our targeted group instruction, we are actually serving 50 students. Our building capacity at 15% is only 29. Those kids come on different days. We have a Monday, Tuesday group, and we have a Wednesday, Thursday group. The way that we have determined who needs to come is we've tracked progress all year with data in reading and math, and we've chosen those students that way. One celebration point about our targeted assistance plan is every single parent that I have spoken to and that our teachers have reached out to has been overwhelmingly supportive of what we've done. They are very excited. Their kids are really glad to be back in school. One thing about our targeted assistance plan, we have our kids come from 8:30 to 11:30. We are able to give the students 2 meals a day. Through our food service department, we have breakfast and we have lunch. And then one other improvement is that we just need to keep looking at the needs of the students. Sometimes, you know, there may be at a time that one kid doesn't need to come, but maybe another student does need to come. So, and that's about it. Any questions or?
Alan?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily just for you, but even the other principals. These lessons that they're doing on the internet, the teachers are teaching. I was just curious, is that an interaction like what we're doing here in this team meeting, or is it a YouTube video that they can log on and actually see their teacher doing a class, and then you know, you'd have to call in otherwise, or is it like a response, like we're sitting there talking to each other? Can they ask questions while it's going on?
At our school, we are using Google Meets for that. And it is exactly like, I have a kindergarten teacher that uses Microsoft Teams every day, just like we're using here. So, and they teach actual live lessons. So.
That's good. I was just curious if the kids could actually ask questions while it's going on or not.
Yes, they can.
Ms. Montgomery, I just want to, again, just even with Mr. Carrier's team, I want to tell you how proud I am of all of you for doing the best you can, what you're doing. And we got the number of 49 students here, and I know that's a high average for you all. I'm just curious is overall, and when we're looking at the entire school, are the kids seem to be successful? Do they seem to be growing at a steady rate instead of, where we see kids that had fallen off for a while? Have you all seen steady growth throughout the year, or do you see the dip to where virtual learning has really caused them to not be able to learn in a capacity that we'd like them to?
Well, I think, of course, everybody, we're all in the same boat, but we're not in the same circumstances. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
It has helped probably some kids more than others. But, like Ms. Godby said earlier, I think maybe we probably need to watch for our report cards, and we'll be able to tell a little bit more of an impact after we get our grades this 9 weeks.
Yeah. How's the internet service for those students up that way? Is it pretty decent?
It's pretty decent. We've had a few hotspots brought back in that our FRC has taken up, and we're getting some technical assistance on those. But then we're going to get them rolled out by the time that the kids are needing them again.
Okay. Again, thank you all. Thank your staff for what you're doing. Thank you all.
I will.
Anyone else? Questions for Ms. Montgomery? All right, Mr. Rowe, next. Need you to unmute.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the mute button alone.
All right.
I don't know if she's on here as of yet.
She's on mute too.
All right, Dr. Rigsby, unmute.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I could read your lips. I don't think that everybody could read mine though. Could you? Oh goodness. Well, I want to thank you all for your continued support, and thank you for allowing us to all of us principals to be able to come and speak this evening. I will preface before I answer any of the questions as far as the talking points for this evening. I do want you to know that all of the questions I have I sent out to our teachers. Got some feedback from them because I wanted their voice to be heard, and then I wanted to be sure that that we were on the same page, and that just to kind of calibrate kind of where we are, and I appreciate them and how important they are to our school and to our Tigers. So we'll first start off with the virtual plan, and I'll say too, James Carrier mentioned this, you guys are always welcome. You are always welcome at our schools, and I encourage you to come out, speak with us, look over some things, and especially if I say something that you have a question about or you'd like to see further, please come, please ask, please reach out, and we will be more than happy to help and to try to clarify. So in looking at our virtual plan and in looking at the ways that we've enhanced the educational experience for our students, the number one piece that we have specifically implemented since the virtual plan was put into place has been those supplemental materials, those videos that have been uploaded. We reached out, Dana Bullock is my instructional coach. We reached out within our own building to try to find our Edgenuity gurus. So we reached out to a few of our teachers who actually were able to find the way of being able to upload the videos, keeping it all under one platform, which was very important to us, to not be toggling back and forth between various different platforms, but to keep it simple for our Tigers, for our students, for our families, as well as for our teaching staff. So being able to keep that under one umbrella for our virtual students that are online. As well as that, we post those. We have a WES Lincoln YouTube page. Facebook page, we have Class Dojo that we're using very heavily. And so my teachers are routinely placing those videos in those spots. So, so that students who are workbook students, for instance, who might not have internet capabilities, typically what we find are that our families generally have an iPhone or some kind of phone device to where they could link and access that pretty easily. So at least that's what we found up to this point. So, so that's one additional piece where we will post information for videos. And again, my teachers are doing these and they are doing them routinely. It is outlined in my virtual plan of very specifically of how many videos they need to be uploading each and every week to make sure that the Edgenuity lessons are prefaced with the videos to help them and just to enhance that learning experience. We also use Google Classroom. We post to Google Classroom. We do Google Meets. One thing that I'm really happy to mention, because we focus so often on the academic component that sometimes that social emotional component gets left kind of off to the side, and we know that our kids need us. So one thing that we are specifically doing, and it is a requirement in the virtual plan, that my teachers are meeting with their students on Mondays to start the week out right, to start it off fresh and fabulous, and to really focus on the social emotional component. It is not a time where we speak necessarily about the academics. It is where we set the tone for the week. We do talk about the things that are expected and the things that we want to see, but we also focus on that social emotional component where they are and try to have fun with it. So, and my daughter is loving it because she is a part of that. Targeted instruction groups, of course, closing those gaps, and we've seen a lot of success. Mr. Lane, I know that you've been asking about those students that are coming in and how successful they've been. We've seen a lot of success already. We were actually able to complete our first MTSS, which is an RTI meeting, where we actually bring in data to look at our students to see, okay, do we have enough to process a referral? Is this a student that needs to move tiers of instruction? We are pulling in those things, as well as those students that are failing that needed that extra support to complete the assignments that we were pushing out. So, so that has definitely been a success. So that really goes under celebration, which is going to be another point, but we do have systems in place for that progress monitoring for our MTSS. We have a whole separate plan. Of course, we've had to be very fluid in these times. So we have a virtual RTI collection. We have for in-person, and then we have kind of what we call a hybrid, which might not be the best name, but it's kind of what we're doing for targeted instruction and how we're collecting that data. So we have that pretty stringently laid out. We're definitely making more parent contact. I will give you an example. Last week alone, we made 519 parent messages through Dojo, and that's only through Class Dojo. That's not including home visits that we routinely make when we can't reach a parent, or phone calls that we're making. So my teachers, my counselor, my staff, faculty, we're all over the place, and we're making all sorts of different contacts, which has definitely proved to be beneficial. As far as requirements from teachers and from students, of course, those video supports are essential. And we, of course, are making additional family contacts at least 2 times a week. Teachers have actually volunteered for after-hours support. So we have an after-hours support hotline, as well as a Google form that that parents are able to fill out if they need any assistance from 6 o'clock to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, and we've just gotten started with that. That's something new. So we're hoping that after the beginning of the year, that's going to be something that really is used heavily. But the communication has been sent out to all of our families. Analyzing Irate and pushing skill-specific lessons for our RTI or MTSS students, that's something that we are currently doing, because we have to have lessons that really go towards the probes that we're using and the data points that we have to have for our multi-tiered systems of support, or RTI. So we have been pushing Irate lessons for that on the instructional level of that child. And when students come in for targeted instruction, that's one of the components that we will assist with and monitor. we're making additional home visits, we're informing families, and then of course we are getting those intervention lessons prepared for those in-person targeted instruction students and gathering Ames Web data, because that is the mode, that's the program that we use to make sure that we're gaining the probes that we need and the data points for our MTSS. As far as students, they have those iReady lessons that they are required to complete if they're in intervention. Again, that is a strugglesome point at times, because there are some students that might not be it might not be as easy for them to complete those at home. And then we found that we can bring those in for targeted instruction, and it makes all the difference. For those students who opt to not come in, we're having teachers either video chat or sending home. My RTA teacher, for instance, she sent home books and packets of different things that she's trying to gain some data from with her RTA intervention students. So we're trying to look at different modes of data collection because of the circumstances, and knowing that there are some families that either don't have the internet services still, or just simply don't want to send their children in because of the coronavirus and the risk that they feel like is there. Even though we are taking every precaution to make sure that our healthy at school guidelines are followed, and we're very stringent about that. We are now sending home the supplemental writing, science, and social studies materials in all grade levels. So that's another piece that students are required to complete. So really, with our celebratory component here, when we're looking at our virtual plan, really being able to upload those materials to Edgenuity and keep it under one platform has been a definite success and celebration. As well as, just having students in the building for targeted instruction has been amazing. And it has definitely blessed our hearts, because we not only get to see our tigers, but we're able to help them. So, and in a small group and being safe. So, so that has definitely been a beneficial component. As far as for targeted instruction, we are serving currently 53 students. We run 4 days a week, and we have students in the morning and in the afternoon, and it's definitely been a blessing, and it's gone very, very well. We serve those students, of course, that are in our MTSS structures. We serve special ed. So I know that there were originally some special ed students that were coming in, and others that were not. They were taking more of the high needs. We're bringing in all of our special ed population, our exceptional children, so that monitoring can be completed and interventions can be administered. We've also brought in our ELL students, as well as any failing or struggling students. Those students were chosen based upon the levels of support in the MTSS structure. So for the very first, when I mentioned the MTSS students that were being brought in. As far as a celebratory point for targeted instruction, looking at just having face-to-face intervention for those students and to work with those struggling students has been definitely a celebration point. And then, of course, having 2 meals a day, having them in, being able to send them with breakfast for those students who might not be in for breakfast because they're coming in at 11:30. That has also been just an absolute phenomenal, great thing. I will praise
Dr. Rigsby, I'm so sorry, but I have been designated as the timekeeper. And past your 10 minutes. So
my gosh. I thought that I was going very well. Okay. Guys, I'm sorry. I do get a little long-winded. Sorry. Okay. So any questions?
Great job. Love the enthusiasm. We appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Rowe, if you point the next one.
Yes, Mr. Abbott.
First of all, I tell you guys good evening, and I'm going to start off a little bit differently. Anytime I have a captive audience, and Brad Smith, if you'll not mute me, I'd greatly appreciate that. I promise to keep it within the 10 minutes here, but I do have something very important to share with you. Being in education, particularly in administration, I've found that to require 2 equal parts, 1 part inspiration and 1 part innovation. And I'm going to attempt to share both of those with you tonight. So I want to tell you a quick story. I'm going to bring a little bit of science teacher from when I was in the classroom, as well as just a family tradition that I share with my maternal grandmother, who's no longer with us. So this particular time of year, the seasonal patterns that come through, there's a lot less daylight, colder weather, and that could lead to some feelings of isolation and sadness and loneliness and the like. Well, I shared a tradition with my mammy back home, and every Christmas season I would buy her a poinsettia. And so the story that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to call it the lesson of the poinsettia. I shared this with our stakeholders a couple of weeks ago during our morning meeting. And a poinsettia is a short day plant. There are short day plants and there are long day plants. Well, short day plants have an internal time clock where they detect that there's less sunlight, and so they begin to bloom to reproduce. And so it is because of the lack of daylight, the colder weather, that we get to enjoy the colorfulness of the poinsettia. And so the lesson that I take away from that is this: if it weren't for those darker times, it's likely that we wouldn't appreciate the more colorful things in life. And while we may be somewhat out of sorts with our education system and other things that are going on around us, we just need to take that in and remember that it's temporary. Better times are coming, and there are colorful, beautiful things to be found if we only keep our heads up and take the time to look for them. So I appreciate you allowing me to share that first. Before I share what we're doing with our virtual instruction. And Colleen, if you need to leave for a moment and forget the timer, that's okay. I promise to hurry here. I really do want to give a lot of credit to our elementary principal team. You'll find that a lot of our virtual plans are very similar. It starts with the base program of Edgenuity at Crab Orchard Elementary School. The way that we are supplementing or changing what we're doing since the I call it virtual or distance learning 1.0. I think we're probably on version 3 at this point, but our teachers push out supplemental lesson plans on their Google Classrooms or Google Sites or through social media. We're experimenting with student engagement apps, add-ons called Flipgrid, Nearpod, and Jamboard. And our kids who are offline, we're providing supplemental printed packets for those kids who are offline in all content areas. One thing that I'm really proud of, and this came from an idea that stemmed from a neighboring school. My instructional coach came to me and pitched it, Miss Isaacs, and she said, you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea if we could just have a daily morning meeting with our kids. Let's just have, you know, those that can, let's have a daily morning meeting at 10 a.m. with our students, and we do that via Google Meets. The first week or so, we had about 50 to 60% participation. And by the second week, at the end of that week, it had ballooned to 70 to 80% participation. And now it's just the norm for my school. We get to check in with kids. We get to talk to them. We get to talk about the learning targets for the day. And the parents, I think, appreciate that just because it sets the tone for the learning. And the kids automatically know, okay, it's my routine. I get on at 10. After my morning meeting, I get started with my work. And so it's very beneficial for our kids. Our teachers are pushing out at least one uploaded lesson, read aloud or demonstration per content area, per grade level per week. And they're also making at least one personal phone call or reaching out via text at least one time per week. That's in addition to the morning meetings that we're already having. Just to give you a celebration point, one of my teachers shared with me, she was very transparent, and she said, you know, Mr. Abbott, I'm going to tell you something. She said, at first, when you pitched this morning meeting idea, I just didn't think it was going to work. I thought it was going to be a flop, that we wouldn't have a lot of participation, that the community would look upon it as being an extra thing that they had to do. And she said, I didn't think it was going to work. And she said, one of the parents contacted me shortly after that and said that was the best part of their student's day. The student had specifically said, I love getting on morning meeting. It's the best part of my day. So that kind of tickled me that we had such success with that particular innovation. Things that we're looking to improve. While we're having these virtual meetings, I'd like for us to be able to explore virtual breakout sessions similar to classrooms, particularly in upper grades. You have small groups who get together and have really good discussions. And I think that's missing from our virtual platform right now, those kids being able to meet in small groups and just talk about the learning. That metacognition allows for deeper learning and transfer of knowledge. And we certainly want to be able to incorporate that if we can. I feel like we could do a better job of rewarding and celebrating our students. That's just a spot that I feel like we're lacking. I really would like to see us do more with that. And I'd also like to see us better serve our gifted and primary talent pool students. I know we're doing our very best to close the gap with our students who are very vulnerable or who are in interventions, but I feel like we also need to do a better job with our students who need enrichment. And as far as our targeted groups, we average about 30 per day. And at some point during the week, we usually see about 60 kids at some point throughout the week. And we're serving our intervention students. We're serving kids who need to do some sort of diagnostic work. We're serving our special needs population and just our students who are at risk of failure. Just this past week, we had a parent who called and said, hey, we're way behind. We failed a couple of lessons. We're not getting it. I'm afraid we're going to fail. And so I pulled up that student's grades. We looked at it, and indeed that student was at risk of failure. And so we pulled that student in to help that student person to person. And as far as a celebration point for our targeted services, I just feel like we're continually working together to remove barriers to our students' learning, particularly our kids who are the most vulnerable. We're preventing a good number of those students from falling further behind by providing structure and individualized instruction and a safe learning environment for them to continue to grow. A way that I would like to see us improve is, the majority of our kids are coming in on a particular day or just a couple of days. And if we could expand that to include more days of week by offering expanded transportation, I feel like that would impact more kids in our community. And again, also to expand to include enrichment activities for students who need more. So, that's our virtual learning in a nutshell. And again, I'm appreciative of our elementary principal team who's able to get together and collaborate. I'm very appreciative of our teachers. They're working so hard to try to meet the needs of our students and close the potential achievement gap that we're going to see.
Any questions or discussion?
I did have one. Again, your all's team, great job. Proud of all of you for what you're doing for the kids, and their success is going to be the proof in that for everybody. I probably should have just saved that for the end of it, but you did raise a question that I wish I would have asked the team, and Ms. Godby shared with us that you have about 30 to 35 kids, and then you mentioned throughout the week you see approximately 60. Is that probably the total number of, and I hate to call them bodies, but is that the total number of different people you're seeing through the week that you're reaching is 60, or are y'all actually reaching more kids than that? Because I'm assuming that some kids aren't coming every day. It's probably, a rotating different number of kids.
Yes, sir, it is. And so once we launched this targeted service, we introduced buses. We allowed parents to drop off. And so I have a master schedule. We're seeing kids 5 days a week, and they're different kids. Some kids come once, some kids come twice, some kids need 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. I'm able to provide transportation in certain areas on certain days. And if students, if there's not transportation on that day and the parent's able to bring the kid, we certainly want those students in if they need to be there. But yes, I do have on my roster, I have 60 individual students throughout the week who come through the school for some sort of service.
Yeah. Thank you all for that.
Anyone else? Mr. Rowe, next.
Mr. Kruger.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. All that stuff they said, we're doing that. You need to know anything else, or you good? Because we're doing all that stuff, what they just said. I'll take any questions at this point. No, I will breeze through because a lot of this will be redundant otherwise, because we do have a district plan, and I'm thankful that we got a district plan rather than everybody being on an island trying to figure it out themselves. I appreciate being able to collaborate with Student Support Center and the elementary principal team that Mr. Abbott kept referring to. You know, there's a lot of things, and none of us have ever been through this before, that I would have hated to try to figure out on my own. And that includes the teachers in the building as well. I mean, we've got great leaders in our building that are just in classrooms, that aren't necessarily looked at usually as being in a leadership role. We've utilized them too through our cohorts. I don't know if anybody's mentioned the cohort work yet or not, but that's been a huge help, where we have cohort leads at each grade level in each content area that have planned these 9 weeks. The third 9 weeks is already planned. If there's a virtual component, Ms. Tomlinson, you know, leads that work for us, and pushes out what needs to be done to the cohort leads, and then we have teachers take the lead on that. So that's not principals leading that work either. But following the questions, the first two, really they've hit everything within the plan, because that's basically the district plan. Edgenuity's the core, and then we support that by providing resources either through interactive lessons to where the teacher, you know, the students can interact with the teacher, or also some recorded lessons that they could access at any time. We use a variety of platforms. Google Classroom's the main one, but other teachers are more comfortable with other things. They were already using it in their classroom, so they just continued. Class Dojo being one I've heard mentioned earlier too. I'm going to skip on down to Celebration Point. This is more of a byproduct of the circumstance and the implementation of the plan than it is a plan itself. Just the increased collaboration between home and school. You know, you would think it would be harder now, and it is more difficult, but we have to be more intentional. We have to make sure that we're communicating with home, as to where we make those attempts when we're in a regular school year, but we're maybe not as successful because they really need to hear from us and we need to hear from them. And another byproduct of that is our teachers, I think, know more about our kids now and their families than they have even when they've been seeing them in person. Because you have to think, you know, these grade level teachers, like in my building where we're departmentalized, and, you know, you just teach at grade level. You're not teaching multiple grade levels if you're a classroom teacher, a core teacher. You know, you've seen these kids 10 days in person. That's all you've actually laid eyes on them since the beginning of the year. So most of this has been virtual or on the phone or, you know, through email with parents. So they've found out a lot about their kids and their families out of necessity. And many of the teachers have told me that too, that they've got a better idea of our entire community now, I think, because of that. And having a few new teachers in the building this year that aren't from our community, I think that's helped as well. Identify one area for improvement in our plan. Going forward, you know, if there's a virtual component, it's what's always a concern, but now it's more challenging, is what if you have students who aren't doing the work? You know, we're doing everything we can to make sure the work is done, provide the supports, get in touch with not only the students, of course, but the parents. And it is a challenge, though, if you're not receiving that support from home. And that's very, very few situations, but there are a couple of situations to where that's created some challenges. We've been there with the supports. The district's been there with the supports. If it's been resources they've needed, if it's a connection issue, you know, we provided hotspots. We've worked with other grade levels to where maybe, you know, our K and 1 are primarily the ones that are doing workbooks and the others are all virtual, but we do have some older students, special circumstances that are on workbooks. Maybe they're where even a hotspot won't work because they don't have cell service. If you don't get cell service, the hotspot doesn't work. So we've done everything we can to support, but we need to ensure that every single kid is doing the work and then we can follow up with them and see what their actual needs are. Almost done. What groups benefited from the instruction? I think we've said that it's our EC and RTI groups primarily, but we do have kids outside of those two groups that just need extra help. They're struggling, their parents have let us know, or we have known because we're tracking them and seeing what the data shows, and we've reached out to them and asked their parents, could they come in? And if so, would this morning or this afternoon work? What would work best? Another celebration point, just getting kids in the building in general, having eyes on them. I think Ms. Rigsby or Dr. Rigsby referred to this. We're offering a whole lot of services more, as we always do, than just teaching kids. Our FRC, our counselor, and just being able to talk to them and see what their needs are, see what their mental state is. It's hard on kids to be cooped up this long. So I think that's been a great byproduct of, getting the kids in that we are. And identify one area for improvement going forward with small group in-person instruction, increase time with students. If we can get more kids in, spend more time with them. We only transport kids 2 days a week at Houstonville. That was based on the numbers that we had. I think we could get some more in now if we transported, 4 days a week. So we still have to be aware of what our limitations are to not get over that 15%. But, we don't have more than, I would say 30 a day. It varies, but probably 30 on any individual day that we have in our building. And unless you got questions for me, that's all I've got.
Anybody with questions for Mr. Krager? Mr. Rowe, who we got next?
Miss Story.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well, and I know you are sitting back and listening to a lot of things, and so some of the things that I'm going to talk about, you've heard those structures in the elementary school as well, but I just want to begin by saying I am extremely proud to be a part of an incredible place at Lincoln County Middle School, and I feel like I work with the best middle school staff anywhere around, and I'm just really excited and very proud of the work that every single stakeholder has dug in, learned all kinds of new things, and our word this year is resilient. And I think that truly has been a reflection of what we've done. And so according to our original plan, we have tweaked quite a bit and have added. It's taken us 4.5 months to add in the structures that we know just are those great things for student achievement. And it has actually taken us all the way up to last week, implementing every structure that we have going on for the supports of our students. So what we've got going on now that's enhancing our virtual educational experience for our students is we've added what we have called customized courses. We're using as our main platform Edgenuity, and we have learned how to just be geniuses with that platform, I think. And our teachers have worked very hard in creating what we call those customized courses for each of our courses, including also our Patriot Learning Academy for all of our students who've chosen to be virtual all year long. Those teachers have currently, that's one of the plans that just rolled out. Those teachers have also joined in the plan of creating those customized courses, and that has been a huge benefit because the biggest change from where we were, Edgenuity is an accredited program to take students from point A to point Z, and that be truly their class and to get credit in that class. And so we didn't begin by using Edgenuity in that way, just couldn't with, the way things are and families trying to adjust, and it was just very difficult getting students up and running. So the biggest difference now is that it's not looking at this entire year that has been overwhelming to our kids of just keeping up and knowing how to keep up. But now in what we call these customized courses, students are able to see weekly what they know is due, and then the actual grade that's reflected in the platform is their actual grade now. So that's the biggest difference, and we've just seen a lot of turnaround and a lot of success with these changes. We also added to our plan, we've identified our RTI students. We did work, you've already heard our MAP scores, and in response to that is how we identified our RTI students. And so that's up and rolling, and we have an RTI team that is strictly focused on that, and they are working 2 times a week with our students in reading and then 2 times a week in math. That's in addition to the numbers that Ms. Godby shared with you. And we actually have 43 students that are coming in person throughout the week. But we also have 75 students that have been identified in RTI, which are a tier 2 that we are supporting. Another thing that I'm proud of that our staff has worked very hard with, and our leadership team has worked extremely hard, is with our GT supports. We went after that very hard, and that's one of our newest supports that's rolled out recently. We have 100 students that have been identified there. And so this system has been rolled out, and the leadership each is in charge of one of the gifted areas, and we meet with students, and we provide all kinds of resources and opportunities out. And a new site called our LCMS Supports is actually on our website, and it will take you to another site where all of these supports, you could check those out as well. So that's just an awesome thing. We've also, something else I'm proud of is we've added a recognition and celebration system. And one of the highlights of that is every single week, each of our teams identifies a student of the week. And I don't know if you've seen those yard signs out throughout the community, but we've got so many people that are really getting excited about that, and students send us back pictures, and we just give them shout outs, all week long. And then right now, currently our teachers have been working in a system for creating that celebration and recognition for the second 9 weeks, so that we can be ready to roll that out with the achievement that's been happening in the second 9 weeks. Another support that we've added into our system is really up and running and has really kicked off in the past 2 weeks is our nighttime tutoring support. We have that up and running with 4 content teachers every single night from 6 to 9 p.m. So I've got staff members that are out there working right now, and it is incredible how busy they are all evening long. But we felt like that was a extremely important part, that middle schoolers are elementary school students and they're not high school students, but they truly have their needs. And thinking about 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds, many of them being at home by themselves, still need a lot of family support in the times that we've been in. And so we feel like the nighttime tutoring has really been a support to families, that they can reach out just right there from 6 to 9 p.m. when they get home from work. We've also, this is the last piece that we added last week, is our encore opportunities. Those are like the electives at the high school level, but all of our encore teachers have worked very hard at putting together opportunities for our students, and so those are up and rolling. And so not only do students have core classes, but they also have these encore experiences and opportunities to be a part of as well. And then I am just so proud of all of our supporting roles within the building, like our Family Resource Center is going after it so hard, meeting the physical needs of a lot of our students. Our 21st Century also, we have coordinated with them, and we identified 40 students that are being serviced at the tier 2 level in reading and math specifically, but then also we tiered it down into our social studies and science. And so those students are receiving tutoring every single day in targeted interventions of being identified, not just choosing to be there, but we identified, and that was just an avenue that we could go down and use as a resource to support the student achievement. Some of the things that we're requiring from our teachers and our students is that mentoring has always been a top priority in our school the past 2 years. And so that continued to be a top priority for us. And so teachers are still required to mentor and set those appointments up with their students. Teachers lead content coaching every day. Those are just virtual teaching sessions, and students are receiving just the daily support through those of just having the main contact in with their teachers. Students have to now obtain that 100% progress completion each week in order to stay on track. And this is now, as I talked about earlier, so easily identified in their dashboards. Now, teachers are required to turn on those assignments every single Monday, because we have to kind of trick Edgenuity still, because it's not normally functioning that way. So teachers are required to do that and add that into their practice. Teachers are also required to record a weekly grade in IC. So we're not just depending on Edgenuity for parents to have to go and figure all of that out, but we are communicating that through IC reporting as well. Teachers are also required to record daily attendance. They're required to also attend professional meetings like our PLCs and our sub-PLCs and staff meetings and team meetings and instructional teacher lead meetings and team lead meetings and new teacher cadre. So we've got all of those structures up and running at a regular pace. Teachers are required to be available just on a regular working day basis until 3:30. But like I said, we have from 3:30 to 6:30 or 3:30 to 6 with our 21st century. And then we have tutoring, nighttime tutoring from 6 to 9 every single night. So students literally have all day until 9 o'clock to have supports within our building. And then as far as something to celebrate, I feel like that, you know, recently when we rolled out those customized courses, students were able to just really have a fresh start. And we've just heard so many positive things with that. So students, we did have several that were just really struggling, and it was so discouraging seeing this year-long program, and I got behind, and now I see how far behind I am. That was just very discouraging to kids. And it was just a breath of fresh air to them, just to be able to kind of have that fresh start and start all over and have that customized course. One other thing to celebrate that I feel like is what these customized courses are going to do is be able to put us in a really good place for coming back in person. And if we have to leave again, it's not going to be a huge juggle. We are looking at Edgenuity as being around like the teaching of the content versus when we're in person to really be focused on the project-based learning. So you've got the content going on, and then we're back on track with our project-based learning in the building. So it puts our students around in the same area of content, more control that teachers have now, and just really being able to target students where they are instead of being all over the place in this year-long course. So that's just a huge point of celebration for us. An area I feel like that we've got to improve upon.
Miss Story, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. It's time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Godby, I assume?
Yes, Mr. Godby is next.
All right.
So I assume since I'm last that I have an unlimited amount of time to speak tonight, since that
is incorrect, Mr. Godby.
Okay. Just want to check. Just to kind of give you an overview of what's going on at the high school with our virtual learning plan. If I had to use one word, I would say that word has been pivot this year. We've made many changes and adjustments as the year started. Coming out of crisis mode from last year, we spent quite a bit of time over the summer, and as the year got started, training our teachers to use distance learning. Our instructional coaches led teachers through a training on distance learning and have provided lots of resources. And our structure at the high school has been just a little different. We've had three options. We've had the in-person or the virtual option. We've had a group of students also on Edgenuity, which is the self-paced option. And then we've had some students without internet access that we've provided work via flash drives that we've been sending home, and students bringing back the work on those flash drives. Our online schedule has been, we've done first, third, and fifth periods on Mondays and Wednesdays, and second, fourth, and sixth periods on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that kids are not online for 6 straight hours a day. During those off days, or those asynchronous times of learning, as we call it, teachers have been providing students with assignments that they're working on. Teachers are also there to provide support for kids as needed. And then Fridays, teachers are online with all 6 periods for 30 minutes online and then 30 minutes offline, again, when kids can get support as needed. In addition to those online times, all of our teachers, our Patriot groups, are kind of like our homeroom groups. Our teachers are expected to check in weekly with those kids just to kind of see how they're doing and any needs they have in addition to any academic needs that they may have. We have started the Targeted Assistance Program, and we started that, of course, with our EC kids. We kind of triaged our kids. We started with our seniors who were struggling and who were at risk first, and then worked our way down to our juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. One of the things I think that we are going to look at doing next semester, if we have to be virtual, is that we're going to add those students, those students without internet access that we call the flash drive group. We're going to add those students to the students that we're bringing into the building, so that they can come into the building, and we'll transport them in and feed them breakfast, feed them lunch. For about 3 hours, they can be online with classes. We'll alternate those days and times that they're here so that they can meet with all of their classes online and have that access that they wouldn't have. Our Edgenuity group, the self-paced group, has been the group, I guess, that's probably struggled the most. Putting high school kids out there and just saying, work at this at your own pace. They tend to procrastinate a little bit, put stuff off, so they've struggled a little bit. So one of the things that we've said for next semester is if those students have not been successful on Edgenuity this semester, then we're going to require them to come back in person or be virtual if we have to go virtual next semester. With our targeted groups, we've served, as I said, both our EC groups and our regular ed kids, again, kind of triaging, beginning with our seniors and working our way down. We've seen a lot of success with that. We've seen a lot of credits made up. We've seen a lot of kids who were behind and struggling get some work caught up, get some things made up. One of the things that we have as an area, I guess, of improvement with that is not all of our kids are taking advantage of it. The students often that need to don't. So we've got to find a way to work on reaching those kids and getting those kids caught up. I will add that in addition to the kids we're serving in targeted assistance, the Tech Center is also serving about 15 kids that they're bringing in with their hands-on program so that those kids can get some clinical hours and some hands-on things caught up. That's about it in a nutshell. Unless you've got questions, that's about it.
Questions or discussion from Mr. Godby? All right. Well, I just want to say I appreciate all the work that our staffs and our principals and everybody else involved here at the Student Service Center have put in. Difficult times in building the plane as they flew it, and will continue to do so. So I appreciate your presentations tonight. Number 4 on our agenda is the consent agenda. And before we ask for a motion on that consent agenda, I would like to bring up something myself. The request for the use of the basketball gyms for Youth League, Little League, I just want to make sure that our work session, the stuff we talked about at our work session is mentioned here before we do a consent agenda with that. And I'm going to throw these out here, and then if I missed something, let me know, or if I overstated something, let me know. So we're going to allow them to use the gyms, but they cannot use them if the county is red. They will use High School Athletic Association model guidelines for gym capacity. However, there is no connection between whether our high school teams compete versus whether our youth leagues compete. In other words, the high school, our district, we will go by the guidelines provided by the High School Athletic Association as to whether our teams play or not. The Little League teams are limited by if they're in red, they do not use our facilities. Have I summarized that pretty well? Am I missing something? Are we all in agreement on that?
Mr. Smith, I think that's correct. And I've been thinking about this, and speaking to Mr. Rowe, I think we also probably need to have the Little League organization execute a contract just stating out those terms, and then sign a waiver of liability, and the participants to sign a waiver of liability just regarding COVID or communicable diseases, to hold the district harmless if any of that occurs. If there's
Okay.
if there's a spread during a game or they believe, it's hard to prove, but I still think that we need to do that on behalf of the district.
But there's no problem with going ahead and approving this as part of our consent agenda, then providing that contract once this is done?
Yes, sir. I think that's just
Okay.
fine.
All right. Alan, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just like you asking about what was actually going to be in the contract. I guess what you might say, we mentioned something before about the sanitization. I know they're in charge of it while the ball game's going on, but I'd still like to see it as some of our representatives of the janitorial staff take care of it when everything's concluded. That way, if we are in person with our kids coming back to school the following day, then it's up to our standards.
Yeah, I think that's something that needs to be included in that contract also.
In the, I hate to cut y'all off, but in the updated guidelines from Mr. Jenkins that was emailed to all of us, he mentioned that they already do that. They cover the expenses for one janitor to clean up those facilities. And that was the only thing I was going to add, Wynn, is that we add the updated attachment that was emailed to us to this to this motion. I mean, I think that it's clear if the county's not in red, the facilities are not available for anybody that's asking for facilities. Mm-hmm. And in the KHSA attendance guidelines for sure. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Alan or John, Mr. Baker, but I do think that in that email, he included that they already do that. They pay for someone to clean the gyms after they leave.
Okay.
They've been doing that for years.
Yeah. All right. Very good. All right. All that being said, if there's no other questions or comments, I would welcome a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the, well, I guess, let me back up. I'm sorry. The second facilities request, do we need to address that one as far as the contract as well? If the county's not in red, they are not allowed to use it either. I know that it's a different thing. It's the transportation class, and I can't remember. Is this something we vote on every year, or is this a first-time request by them?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not for sure if it's every year or not. That's a good question.
I'm pretty sure we've had this pretty much every year. They have these classes so the kids can get their driver's license, and I believe they've used the high school every year.
Okay. Well, I think it's simple enough. Of if the county's in red, they don't use it. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Lane? Yeah.
Yeah, I am. And in their request, they actually said pending COVID, future COVID guidelines. So they did list that in there. But yeah, I just want to make sure that we're fair across the board.
No, absolutely.
For every request that if we're in the red, it's not available.
Right. Okay.
May I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Just let everyone, we have a lot of people watching. I think this is an important item that they've been looking for. When we talk about the red, as of now, it looks like we're going to be in the red for a long time. So but just for approving this doesn't mean we're going to jump right out there and gung ho and get everything going. We got to make sure we get down to the orange, because it's going to be a while before that takes place.
Okay. All right. Once again, no further comment. I welcome a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, Ricky.
Okay, Ricky, second.
I second.
Ms. Meeks, second. Vote. Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. All right. Action items, number 5A, school calendar and start date for the second semester. Mr. Rowe?
Yes, the governor came out earlier in the week and has recommended that we not go back to school in person until the 11th of January. We had set to come back actually for kids on January the 5th. So one of the items is we need to discuss is, does the board want to stay where we're at on the 5th, or do we want to go to the 11th as recommended by the governor? Another thing as part of this is, what's that going to look like for our school calendar? And I have Ms. Hart on here. Before I could even ask her to put what a calendar would look like if we went to the 11th as a start date, she'd already had it done, which is a great thing. So we can ask her some questions too. But the first question is we need to talk about is, do we want to change the date to the 11th?
Does that need to be a board decision, or is that something that you all can decide?
I would think this needs to be a board to decide due to the fact that we're going to be changing the calendar.
Alan?
I think referring back to an earlier meeting, we're probably not up for discussion on whether or not we start back on our schedule or we start back on the governor's schedule due to our insurance, correct? That falls with our insurance said we had to follow the government or, the governor's guidelines in order to be enacted. But what about as far as the calendar? I mean, we're on virtual right now already. What would be wrong with going ahead and continuing knowing we're going to start back virtual on the day that we were supposed to start back? And then if that thing's allowed, going back to in person after that.
Yeah, before Ms. Hart gets on here to answer that question, one of the things that the commissioner and the governor talked about is the red metric is still the same for the number getting there, but what we can do as a school district when we're in the red as a county has changed. If it's in the red, we have to do what they call an aggressive hybrid schedule. And when we heard that terminology, we hadn't heard it before. The first question was, what is an aggressive hybrid schedule? To me, a hybrid schedule is normally like an A-B. We have students coming on, certain students on A day, certain on B. An aggressive hybrid model is an A-B-C-D, meaning you're going to have kids basically coming in 4 different groups, possibly 1 time a week. So if we go back and we decide to do the 11th, do we need to set down some PD days when we go back from the date of the 5th up until the 11th to allow our staff to prepare for that? Because that's going to be a look that we haven't thought about before. So Ms. Hart will have some calendars that could show you what that would look like if we decided we wanted to put PD days there.
So I'm on here, Mr. Rowe, if you're ready for me to speak.
Is that okay, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I prepared 2 calendars, and I'm not sure if Mr. Rowe has shared them with you, but one of them.
They're on their e-meeting.
Okay, great. So one of the 2 calendars, and you're going to look at January to know the difference because I did not think to label them for you all, so I apologize. So if you look at the January box, at the very top on the week of the 3rd through the 9th, I want you to look at the calendar that has purple for the 4th, and then it has hot pink for the 5th through the 8th. So that is a calendar that reflects what you just brought up, Mr. Hubble. That would mean that we have the PD day still for teachers on the 4th, and we would do NTI for the 5th through the 8th, just as we have been for the school year, and then hope to come back in person on the 11th. The second calendar you have has the 4th that is a day off for everybody. And then it has, you can see orange, the 5th through the 8th, which are PD days. And there's a reason I selected PD days for a couple reasons. Number one, so that we have planning time to prep for kids. And the other reason would be because those are flexible PD days. So we could bring in a limited number of staff to help prep for kids coming back and start looking at hybrid models. That's something that we as the Student Support Center are going to be working on over the break. But we are definitely going to need some time to prep the buildings and the teachers and how that's going to look. So those are the 2 options I've come up with. I can definitely come up with more. I do want you to notice on this one that has the PD days, if you look down at the very last box in the bottom right-hand corner, this would reduce us to 164 days, which if you remember, we did the alternate calendar, so we're not held to the 170 instructional days. We are held to 1,062 instructional hours. That's what we have to complete. So I knew that going into this year, so I gave us some extra time on the calendar. So we do have to make up some of the days, but not all of them if we turn those to PD days. So if you look in February and March, I've taken the 2 PD and a staff work day. We had a PD day in February and a staff work day in March. It would require us to turn those into student days. And then also it would move the 27th, which we originally had as the closing day. It would bump that to the 28th. So we would still finish with staff and students by the 28th of May. We would still meet our instructional hours. So that's all listed on there for you. So I wanted to make sure to point out that box. I also wanted to point out when you look at the end of like the 3rd and 4th 9 weeks, I did not touch that box because I didn't know if we were going to go with this model. And that's something I would want to bring up to principals and let them assist in picking those end dates if we make these changes. That box is not accurate if you look at it, but the bottom one is with all the information on instructional hours. Any questions for me?
No, I would hate to, I'd hate to put our teachers out there to play with no practice. So I think that I really like the extended calendar, and I appreciate the work you all put into that. That's, it looks like y'all have been very diligent in your research and planning to get our kids in a place to where they can come to school and be successful at some capacity. So after hearing the presentation, I really do like the extended winter break calendar, guys. I don't know, and Miss Meek, I don't know what you all think, though.
We're open for discussion.
I like the extended calendar that Ms. Hart just talked about.
It preps us for some inevitable things, I believe.
It does.
And it gives us, again, I hate to keep going back to this one, especially after the last meeting, it gives us a little bit of time to assess what shape our community is going to be in after the holidays. Unfortunately, like I said, it looks like we're starting to trend in the right direction once again, but it's been bad. So if it gives us another week to heal, our community to heal, and to get through that, gives our teachers time to prepare, I think that's the best option.
I also wanted to point out that I have not touched spring break, so we still have that week to play with as well, if need be.
This is just
We've lost you, Bruce.
You turned your mic off, Bruce.
Yeah.
This is just a technical question on calendars. Would those be extra PD days, or would they become staff work days? Because I think the district can have 4 staff work days.
Minimum of 4 staff work days. We are allowed to have as many staff work days or PD days as needed this year with the alternate calendar. So I did select the professional development days, and I believe that is because, well, the reason that I selected that, I can change that if you all would like, but I was thinking those flexible PD days allow us to work with staff and bring them in on alternating schedules, so we're not bringing everyone in at the same time. The reason the governor made this suggestion is because people are going to get together with family members during the holidays. We saw a surge, of course, after Thanksgiving. So I want to respect teachers as well as students and bring them in, on alternating schedules so that we don't have everyone back within that time frame that he was concerned with.
Any other discussion or question? Alan?
Am I wrong? Is the 14 days kind of the magic number on the quarantine, correct?
It is, yes, sir.
So why? I mean, I can already said the 11th, but if we're going to stretch it out for the safety of the students and the safety of our staff, why aren't we going to the 15th? Because New Year's Eve will be just as big a gathering as it will on Christmas Day. So
the idea behind the governor's recommendation is that you would, he believes that you would show symptoms at that point. You might be out longer or you might be quarantined longer, but we would think that you would show symptoms after Christmas Day beyond that point. The recommendation right now is if you are positive, you are out 14 days. If you were exposed to somebody with the illness that tested positive, you're out for 10 days. That's the newest recommendations out.
All right. Mr. Rowe?
My recommendation would be is the same thing I think the majority of everybody's been talking about is pushing it out to the 11th and having those PD days and give our staff the opportunity to prepare and provide the best opportunity for our kids when they do come back on the aggressive hybrid schedule.
All right. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept and put into place the extended winter break calendar.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Alan seconds. Vote, Alan,
Yes.
Ms. Meek,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, sir.
and I have a yes also. All right. Thank you for your work on putting that schedule together. I know what was a quick turnaround. Mr.
No
Hubble?
problem.
Yeah, I know we done voted and that's fine. I mean, I'm good, but I just got a question since this probably the last time we're gonna meet before the end of the year. Or what about a contingency plan if the governor changes something after Christmas between then and the 11th? Is that something that you might need to think about? I mean, I hate to be.
Absolutely. We're going to be discussing our hybrid plans beginning tomorrow. So we will definitely have some plans and things to present to you all very, very soon.
And not only that, it's no problem to call a, called meeting at any point in time, even before January the 1st, Mr. Hubble.
Oh, no, I was just, the only thing I was referring to was, because he's liable to change it,
Yeah.
January the 2nd,
Yes.
It's hard to make plans in 2 days' time to make something
Right.
work. And that's all I was.
One thing I've learned this year is any plan that we all agree on, don't get too comfortable with it because it's probably going to change. And before I hop off, I do want to just point out really quick, because we've been talking about all the great plans happening in our district. I did want to point out that our 21st century folks, have extended their after school hours to help with tutoring. They pass out enrichment bags so that they can do science experiments and hands-on things with students. And we average at least 500 bags roughly a week district-wide. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. And I gave those people working so hard, recognition that's long overdue.
Absolutely. Appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you. Next up, MOA with Murray State University, Mr. Rowe.
Yes, this is, as explained during the working meeting, this is simply allowing our employees who are working on their counselor certificates to be able to get their clinical hours and experience needed through their time in the district. And we do this with other universities. So I recommend that we would approve this.
Okay. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we enter into the agreement with Murray State.
Okay. I'll second it. Mr. Hubble, vote.
Yes.
Ms. Meek,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, sir.
and I vote affirmative also. All right. Next is the business community leader nominations for our local planning committee. We have followed through with media notifications, advertisements on our Facebook page, etc. Mr. Rowe, have we had anybody since our working meeting come forward that would be interested in, or who has applied?
No, sir, we have not.
Okay. We need to get out there, I guess, as board members and see what we can come up with, people we know that we can make them aware of this opportunity to serve the district, and see if we can get some names in here to pick from. All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions about that?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So all of the other selections have taken place for all the other members, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Any other questions, comment? All right. Revised board policy, fundraising activities, Leanne Smith.
Yes, as we had discussed last week, we're looking to amend our district policy regarding fundraisers, and we're just changing that to state that any school-wide fundraisers must be approved by the board, but any other fundraisers would only need to be approved by the building principal and the school-based decision-making council.
Any questions or discussion? I'll entertain a motion to revise board policy on fundraising activities. I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion. Second. Mr. Lane seconds. Vote. Mr. Hubble.
Yes.
Ms. Meek.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes.
And I vote affirmative also. All right. Lincoln County Schools fee schedule, Leanne Smith.
Yes, our board policy states that we will approve fees that are charged to students annually. And so what has been compiled here is a list of all fees from all the schools. Last week when we discussed at the working meeting, we actually just were looking at the high school, but I decided to go ahead and get the whole district covered so we wouldn't have to revisit it. So that's a comprehensive list for all the schools in the district.
Any questions or comments about the fee schedule? I'll entertain a motion to accept the Lincoln County Schools fee schedule.
I make a motion. Go ahead.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion. Mr. Lane seconds. Vote. Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Meek?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, sir.
And I vote yes also. MOA with the University of Kentucky, Ms. Tomlinson?
Yes, this is the partnership with UK so that we can provide more dual credit classes at our high school. This would be partnering our teachers with the instructors at UK, and we are very excited to try this. We've got several teachers that are ready to roll on it. If we could go tomorrow, they would do it, I think, but it would be for the next school year.
Okay. I think this is a fantastic thing that we've got the opportunity to do. The opportunities it has for our students is outstanding. That being said, any questions or discussion?
Make a motion.
What?
So moved.
So move, Alan. I'll second it. All right. Vote, Mr. Hubble.
Yes.
Ms. Meek,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, sir.
and I vote yes also. Positions added to the salary schedule, Ms. Cooper.
Ms. Cooper is not available tonight. I've got her on assignment on another duty. Don't think she's not working, but I'll fill in for her.
All right.
And she shared during the working meeting, this would be to add the contact tracer position to the salary schedule, the national board stipend to the schedule, the speech language pathologist assistant position, and the supervision stipend that goes along with that. These are currently not on the salary schedule, and especially for the national board and the speech language pathologist assistant position, these people have already been employed for quite some time and already been receiving that. It's just not been a part of the salary schedule. I want to say kudos for Ms. Cooper for finding that, and my recommendation is we add those to the salary schedule.
Okay. Questions or discussion? Entertain a motion to add those positions to the salary schedule.
Motion, Ricky.
Ricky makes a motion. Second.
Second.
Second, Bruce. Vote, Mr. Hubble,
Yes.
Ms. Meek,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, sir.
and I vote yes also. Modifications to the certified evaluation plan. I assume that goes back to you, Mr. Rowe.
Yes, it does. And as Ms. Cooper shared during the working meeting, due to COVID-19, we know we've only been in person basically around 2 weeks for this school year. So districts are having to scramble to get their certified evaluation plan altered in order to accommodate being able to do our evaluations using more of a virtual type platform. So this is just modifying that evaluation plan, allowing us to reflect more of the virtual learning in that.
Okay. Questions or discussion?
I have so just for clarification, when the regulation says the first 30 days of their employment, they're to be provided, the instrument and the process and everything. So this will supersede that?
Yeah, yes, it will. No different than we've done in the past. Usually it happens more toward the end of the year. We may extend deadlines because of missed school days and so forth. The board has done that, I think, almost every year I've been here. So this is no different than this. We'll have to notify the employees of what's taking place. And once this is passed, we have 30 days to notify them that if there is an alteration in this.
Okay. Any further question or discussion? Do we have a motion to approve the modification to the certified evaluation plan?
I make the motion.
Ms. Meek makes a motion. Second.
Ricky, second.
Ricky seconds. Vote. Mr. Hubble. Okay. Ms. Meek. Yeah, we heard you.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right.
Oh,
Ms. Meek,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, sir.
and I vote yes also. I is the approval of the calendar committee members. Ms. Hart.
Hello again. So this is per KRS 158.070. It tells me exactly who has to be on the committee. And so I've listed out for you all those members that fit the requirements. And I just ask that you approve this group to help create the next calendar.
Any question or discussion by board members? Do we have a motion to approve the calendar committee members?
Motion to approve, Ricky.
Mr. Lane makes the motion. Second.
A second.
Ms. Meek seconds. Vote. Mr. Hubble.
yes.
Ms. Meek.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes, sir.
And I vote affirmative also.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wilderness Trace contract, Ms. Godby.
As we mentioned last week, first of all, I'm substituting for Ms. Hahn tonight. As we mentioned last week, we need to enter into the final agreement with Wilderness Trace to serve our 3- and 4-year-olds and some students that are in preschool who have some severe disabilities. 1-year contract. Mr. Baker's had the chance to look over that, and I don't think we have any real concerns with that.
Okay. Questions or discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion to enter into the Wilderness Trace contract.
So moved.
Mr. Hubble, second.
Second, Ricky.
Ricky, second. Thank you. Vote. Mr. Hubble.
Yes.
Ms. Meek.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Lane.
Yes, sir.
And I vote affirmative also. Amendment of the September 10th, 2020 special call meeting minutes. Bruce Smith was shown as a second to the motion for Ricky Lane's vice chair nomination. There was no second to this action. We need to amend the minutes to show that there was no second by Mr. Smith. All right. Questions or discussion about it?
Motion to approve, Ricky.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Bruce, I think we got you there on
Mr.
second.
Smith, I've spoken with Ms. Benson on the procedure for us to do that. So
Right.
she knows how to make the notices in the minutes.
Right. Right. So we still have to take a vote or not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Meek?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, sir.
And I vote affirmative also. Facilities usage agreement with the Danville Country Club. Mr. Rowe.
Yes, we had this on our previous agenda and we were discussing this. And I think there were some concerns that Mr. Baker had with the wordage in the contract. And I think he's been able to work that out. So I'll turn that over to him to explain.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it was on, I believe you all have seen the changes. It was mainly just on the liability language that had concern on. I thought that was a little bit too broad for us to enter into. They've agreed to modify that. And I provided that to Mr. Rowe and Ms. Benson to execute upon approval.
Okay. And you're comfortable with everything in the contract?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Have a motion to approve the usage agreement with Danville Country Club.
I make the motion.
Ms. Meek first. Do we have a second?
Second, Bruce.
Mr. Smith seconds. All right. Vote. Mr. Hubble.
Yes.
Ms. Meek.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ricky.
Yes, sir.
And I vote affirmative also. Before we adjourn, Mr. Hubble, this may be your last meeting of your elected term. We may have a meeting before January 1st. You don't know. I just wanted to thank you for your service to the board. Have appreciated your perspective, appreciate your input, and don't be a stranger. I'm sure you'll let us know your opinion when you feel like you need to let us know. But I have enjoyed working with you, and once again, appreciate it. If anybody else has anything to say, I welcome them to say that.
I'd like to second that as well, Alan. I appreciate you. You know, you always come out with a different angle, made us think on another level, and I appreciate you helping us. You know, when we come on the board as the new guys, and you were the old board kind of, I guess you could say, you was very influential, and I appreciate that. And again, it was an honor to work with you, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, appreciate your support and look forward to the future support.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Allen. You always put the kids first, and that's what a true board member does. I truly appreciate you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.